Hello, my name is Jeff, and this is the Hyundai Santa Fe, a three-row boxy SUV looking to steal a little bit of that rugged boxy SUV market share, and it starts at just $34,000 and features things like the most H's you'll find on any vehicle that have ever been built ever. But I didn't actually fact-check that, so I could be wrong, but don't come at me. Now, this one is actually the XRT trim, and that is equipped as around $43,000. The XRT trim is the off-road trim, comes in all-wheel drive with these rugged off-road wheels and a bit more ground clearance. And this is the vehicle I'll be showing you today as we go through the exterior, the interior, the powertrain, and of course, we'll take it for a drive. Getting right into it, here is the key for the Hyundai Santa Fe. It is this crazy chrome egg that looks like an alien spaceship, fairly standard with the power hatch options for the button. Moving into the vehicle itself, this one is finished in this earthy brass matte, which of course is not a cheap color, and it's something you would more likely to see on a BMW, for example. That's where they tend to use a lot of their matte or frozen finishes, as BMW calls it. But Kia, Hyundai, and Genesis are moving in that direction, offering more matte colors. So I like to see them taking it to the Europeans. Now, the look at the styling for this thing, it's very boxy, and Hyundai doesn't really have any previous heritage for this type of thing, similar to how Toyota has the Land Cruiser. And so realistically, this is just kind of buying into that styling, and they made a modern interpretation of it that just happens to be one of the more value-friendly options on the market. Now, this particular vehicle is the XRT trim, and so we have to point out that it does have these more aggressive off-road tires, and surprisingly, it has a little bit more ground clearance. And some of the ways you can differentiate some of the trims on the Hyundai Santa Fe is with things like the glossy black mirrors that changes based on the trims. So what you have here is you have 8.3 inches of ground clearance. That is 1.3 inches more than the standard Santa Fe, which comes in at 7 inches. Taking a look at the front here, Hyundai has gone for a lot of this subtle H styling, but it's not so subtle. I mean, look at the DRLs for this thing. Those are clearly H's, and they're right in your face. And this is something we've seen on a lot of the updated facelifted models for Hyundai as well. Hyundai badge in the center there, lots of just fairly sharp standard styling. It still looks very, very mature. On the side here, we have our 18-inch XRT specific wheels and tires, which are always nice. Underneath, you'll find four-wheel disc brakes with independent suspension in the front and a multi-link setup in the rear. Some Santa Fe badging, again, some power adjustable heated mirrors with integrated turn signals, nice black sides here. Note the roof rails and an actual sunroof. These roof rails are good for up to 220 pounds. As we come to the back of the vehicle, we do, of course, have privacy glass, so everything is a bit tinted here. And we even have this super cool handhold. You can punch this in, allows you to set your foot on the tire, and you can climb up to access things that you have on the roof. You do, of course, get keyless entry just for the front on both sides of the vehicle, not for the rear, unfortunately, but still pretty good value considering the price. And as we come to the back of the vehicle, still a lot of the standard appreciation things. A nice little spoiler here, third brake light, more LED lighting, more of that H pattern. XRT H-Track for the all-wheel drive, because the XRT is all-wheel drive only, although there are front-wheel drive options, and an extremely wide hatch. And I know that this has been subject to certain disapprovals by people that may not like the styling, but because this is a power hatch and this whole rear end is all a hatch, you actually get an extra wide opening, and this allows you to fit all sorts of items back here, including mountain bikes. And of course, the power hatch options are helpful, and that gets you access to the third row seating as well. So you can seat up to 7 in here. You get your power folding options, including some additional ports and even rear AC controls. All very, very smart here in the Hyundai. More integrated H's and things like that that are just hidden into the vehicle, but it's pretty sharp on the exterior, and I appreciate Hyundai for building something this quirky and, let's say, taking a risk. The Hyundai Santa Fe features two different powertrain options and two different drivetrain options. For the engines, you can go for a gas engine or a hybrid engine. The hybrid engine makes less power as a 1.6-liter engine, but of course is more fuel efficient. And then there is this. This is the turbocharged 2.5-liter four-cylinder, which produces a whopping 277 horsepower and 311 pound-feet of torque. So that makes this one of the more powerful vehicles in the class, and definitely one of the faster vehicles as well. And then that is paired with an 8-speed wet dual clutch automatic transmission with paddle shifters for manual shifting functionality. It's even cool that you can see the turbo in the back. Now, the other thing is drivetrain wise, you can get it standard is front wheel drive for the Santa Fe, but there is an optional all-wheel drive. Certain trims like this off-road XRT are all-wheel drive only. And of course, the hybrid is more so to come in the front wheel drive version, but depends on what your use case isn't what you're looking for. Now let's talk performance. This thing weighs around 4,300 pounds, and with this powertrain, the turbocharged powertrain, you're looking at a 0 to 60 time in the 6-second range with a top speed of 130 miles per hour. So this thing is seriously fast. But of course, speed isn't the thing people are really looking for in three-row SUVs, so we do have to talk about fuel economy. This thing has an EPA-rated 19 miles per gallon city, 26 miles per gallon highway, and 22 miles per gallon combined. And given that it has a 17.7 gallon fuel tank, we're talking around 390 miles per tank. And of course, that depends on how you drive it because this is a turbocharged engine. So if you step on it, this thing is thirsty and it will drink it down that fuel pretty quick. And then the hybrid is good for around 30 to 40 miles per gallon. So way more fuel efficient, but of course, less power. I personally like the power for going up hills, carrying things. With this all-wheel drive layout for the XRT, you actually have up to a 4,500 pound towing capacity with trailer brakes. It's about 1,600 without. The standard Santa Fe is going to be around 3,500 pounds. Looking at the engine bay itself, it's pretty straightforward. Not a whole lot is hidden from you. Easy access for your fuses, your battery, all of your fluids, even your air filter. So if you wanted to do your own maintenance, that's pretty straightforward here on the Santa Fe. Moving on to the interior, if we go ahead and open it up, keyless entry. This particular vehicle is finished in black, and the initial impressions of the interior are quite good. I mean, this looks very sharp, very modern. I like the design language, and even for the XRT, getting special embroidered seat backs is always a cool detail as well. I mean, look at all the nice heavy bolstering, the cool patterns in the seats, power adjustable, all good stuff there. And I do have to point it out, more H-theming type stuff for the Hyundai trim. So before we get too far into the technology in the front seat, let's talk about the back seats, because of course, the Santa Fe can seat a total of up to 7, but depending on your trim, that may only be limited to 6 seats. Of course, that's going to be more so the luxurious trims. Here in the XRT, we have seating for 7. So now I'm sitting in the second row of the Hyundai Santa Fe. I'm 6 foot even for reference, and as you can see, I have plenty of headroom. I mean, even if we look at my legs from the side, you can see they're not even touching the seat backs, and that's with the seat set up for me at 6 foot. So that means you'll be able to fit most adults in the second row of the vehicle, even with the sunroof, which loses about an inch or so of extra headroom, which is really impressive. I could sit back here for road trips and be quite comfortable, especially with the fact that you actually have vents that sit in the sides of the door back here to get air, cup holders, lights, and even a hand bar. I mean, the thought process, while it's quite simple back here, it's very impressive. And other trims can actually get 3-zone climate control, so you can get even more controls to your rear passengers if you wanted, but it's fairly simple here in the XRT. Now let's talk third row. It's not currently up, and you really can't fit adults back there. You can definitely fit some kids. There is some leg room, but you lose a lot of the practicality of that rear hatch storage. Now I would say this, if you really needed to carry 7 people and take them on a vacation, I don't think you'll be able to fit 7 people's weekend bags with the third row up, but if you're willing to use the roof rails and that 220 pounds that they can carry, I think you can definitely do it then in that instance. You'll just definitely want that turbo motor to carry the added weight. But it is quite impressive what Hyundai has in here, and there are some changes depending on what trim you choose, like these 6 or 7 seating options, but it's really good. Moving back up to the front, there is some cool tech in here. As I mentioned earlier, it looks very modern. All of your buttons are big and easy to see. You can see all of the hatch controls, brightness, towing capabilities, traction control. Over here we have all of our various power mirror controls, window controls, and even a very cool feature here is actually seeing the window lock and the child lock on the same switch here, so you can do everything electronically without having to move a physical switch in the doors. If we move into the car here, everything gets immensely quiet on the inside. This thing is very well soundproofed, and you can see all of our digital displays here, including this, which is kind of my biggest pet peeve about the interior. Now, these 4 dots are supposed to be an H in Morse code, but to me it almost looks unfinished, as if there was a badge here and it fell off, like the adhesive failed or something, and then this is what you're left with. But anyways, moving on, we have 2 digital displays that are essentially integrated as one. Obviously, this one in front here is your speedo, and the cool part about it being digital is that it can change based on the drive modes. So as you move it into the different drive modes, the colors can change, which is kind of fun, you know, to let you know when you're in sport mode, for example, or even want to shift using those paddles and get it to be more responsive. Speaking of those drive modes, the normal is somewhat self-explanatory. Sport is going to try to increase the responsiveness of the vehicle. My drive is your customization mode, and you have a snow mode. So pretty simple and straightforward. You know, would have been nice to see, I guess, more off-road modes for the off-road version, but you do have the 4-wheel drive lock buttons over here, as well as the downhill assist, so those kind of fit the bill as well. You do have some of your infrared indicators, a lot of your steering wheel controls, things that can be managed to either adjust the digital display as you like, including when it'll show you here where it actually sends power to all four wheels, which is kind of a fun display. We also have all of our cruise control, our paddles, our infotainment controls, and volume adjustments as well. Now, one of the interesting things about the shifter for this vehicle, this is something that we've seen in other manufacturers and in other Hyundai, Kia, Genesis models, and that is this shifter. Now, the way this works is you actually twist it to put it into drive, twist it to put it in reverse, and then on the back here, you push it in, and that puts the vehicle into park. So that's kind of clever. And obviously, in reverse, you do get your rear view cameras, which are pretty decent here on the Hyundai. Moving to the second screen, this is obviously your infotainment system, 12.3 inches, has everything you want. This system can be a bit to manage at times, just because it's got a lot to it. It can be kind of in-depth. It's not the most simple system. That could be good, I suppose, if you like to customize or move things around, but sometimes I find that when you're trying to get to things quickly, it can be a bit much. That being said, there are some physical buttons here that make it plenty easy to jump between some of your other options as well, so you can quickly jump to different items actually on the screen itself. So that's kind of nice. Not the worst system ever, but not the greatest either. Below that, we have our infotainment control systems. Now, this one has just heated seats. Of course, your climate control, which is a dual zone, so different for the driver or the passenger, so they can have their own settings. And some more of those buttons we mentioned earlier, the drive modes, auto hold, four-wheel drive lock, which will actually lock the center, as you can see here. So that way it sends power to all four wheels full time. Auto start stop, downhill assist, your camera buttons to bring it straight up, parking assists. And then again, another very intuitive thing from Hyundai is these buttons here. Now, obviously, there are some USB Type-C chargers, including a Qi wireless charger that is here, but the buttons show you what's happening. And one of the cool things here is you might have noticed this selection. Now, this port is charging only, but this port can be used as a charging point or a media port, and you simply just push the button to have it switch between the two. So somebody can plug into these and not disrupt your media depending on what mode it's in, which I think is incredibly clever. Here on the side, we have some cup holders, and these cup holders are massive. You can fit fairly large drinks in here, including things like hydro flasks, which I personally appreciate. You do have a storage box here, and you technically have a lower storage box that extends out the bottom for the passengers in the rear. You do get a variety of storage, both a regular glove box that's down here and this higher storage, which is pretty clever. And that's a quick look at a lot of the features. A lot of it's pretty straightforward as far as your sunroof, your lights, your sun visors, all that is pretty simple and straightforward stuff. But what I think is so good about this interior, obviously, is just from the fact that it feels like Hyundai is really trying to innovate. They're trying to be different. They're trying to add features that improve your quality of life. And I really appreciate that about these cars. I mean, everything in here is comfortable and it just works, and it's really, really impressive. I think this is where a lot of these cars tend to shine. So what's it like to drive the Hyundai Santa Fe? Well, it's all right. I mean, it's not the most interesting SUV to drive, but I think most people will be just fine with the characteristics. There is one thing that I do strongly dislike about this vehicle, and that is the auto start stop. It is terrible here. It feels like the powertrain doesn't really know how to do it. It's not as intuitive as things from other manufacturers, and I recommend turning it off immediately. I mean, it doesn't even save you that much gas in the first place. Anyways, moving on to the rest of the vehicle, it is an SUV, so you get that nice high-up visibility. You actually have really good visibility out of your windows because it has that sort of slabbish, boxy appearance. Even the rear view mirror is actually pretty good. You can see straight through that flat rear window. However, it would have been nice to see a camera, because when you have a three-row SUV like this, once you start to put people and stuff in it, that can really block your rear mirror, and so it'd be nice to have a camera. I think that should be standard on a three-row SUV. This vehicle also misses out on the very cool Hyundai Kia Genesis turn signal thing, where when you put on your turn signal, it shows you what's in your cameras that are actually on the mirrors. This doesn't have that, but I really wish it did, because that is such a genius feature that they have there. Now, the vehicle itself is quite quick. As I mentioned earlier, that 0 to 60 time feels even faster once you start driving the vehicle. But I do have one other gripe as far as the way the vehicle drives, and that is the actual steering. It just feels really vague, really loose, almost as if the vehicle's even wandering on the road a little bit. A little bit of acceleration here. This vehicle is fast. But anyways, The steering feels a little bit loose. It's not actually wandering. The vehicle drives straight. It's very smooth, but it just doesn't feel very direct, and I don't really like that part about the vehicle. It doesn't make you feel overly confident in the way that the handling is. I'm sure it'll be fine for most people, but from an enthusiast perspective, looking at it as is it interesting to drive, I think the answer is no for that. It's just very, very average. And I personally, you know, I like the more interesting stuff, and so a manufacturer that does do that and does have interesting steering even on the more normal vehicles is Mazda. So that would be an interesting thing to test drive back to back while you're in the market for SUVs. But as a whole, this vehicle isn't bad. I mean, everything just works. It's comfortable in a lot of the different seats. I mean, I like a lot of the intuitiveness. I like a lot of the engineering that Hyundai's put in here, because this is a really impressive vehicle, especially when you consider the value you get for the Santa Fe. So there you have it. That is a quick look at the Hyundai Santa Fe, a really value-friendly three-row SUV that has some awesome styling, which in this day and age, the SUV segment is the most competitive segment of any automobile that you can buy today. So it helps to have something like this that really stands out, especially with this matte paint that looks like something you would find on a BMW, for example. But a very cool vehicle that starts at $34,000 and works its way up depending on what trim you want, and even offered in both hybrid and regular gas versions, which is always great to have options, right? Now, the question then becomes, which one do you buy? Well, the vehicle, I think value-wise, the best trims are going to be right around the middle. So for example, you get a lot of the important features, the important upgrades, certain tech and stuff like that, but you don't necessarily need to spend all of the money and get something like this, the XRT with the off-road trim. In fact, the standard 7 inches of ground clearance is going to be more than enough. Even a regular all-wheel drive version of the Santa Fe would be pretty good value. You don't necessarily need the off-road trim, although it does look a bit more aggressive. I will give it that. So that is cool as far as some of the off-road features come for downhill assist and things like that. But ultimately, it's up to you. I think if you test drive one of these vehicles, you'll be impressed, especially with the initial quality that these vehicles tend to offer. And they do make for a fun-looking vehicle that has a pretty good look-back factor. Now with that, that's also the end of the video. Feel free to look at the comment section. Let me know down below what you think about the Hyundai Santa Fe. I know not everyone's a fan of the rear. If you have any ownership experience you want to share, that's a perfect place to leave it too. If you could leave me a thumbs up, I'd really appreciate it, and consider getting subscribed for more content like this in the future. With that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.